Forget everything school taught you about the Mongols. The massacres were not the horror. The horror started after the fighting stopped, when the commanders walked the battlefield sipping fermented milk and giving calm, almost polite instructions that turned grown soldiers into lifelong insomniacs. Number 1 is so dark, 2 universities allegedly pulled it from the syllabus. Number 20, the ear tax that filled 9 sacks. 9 sacks. That's how many the Mongols filled with human ears on the afternoon of April 9th, 1241, in a field in Poland. 30,000 Europeans were already dead in the mud before breakfast, and before the bodies even cooled, Mongol officers walked the field shouting one word over and over: ears, ears, ears. Every soldier pulled a hooked knife and went to work on the right side of every European face. A Polish monk named Benedictus hid under a dead horse and watched them pour the ears onto a checkered blanket, counting them by tens, laughing, flicking the smallest ones at each other like playing cards. Benedictus lost his mind before winter. He spent the rest of his life whispering the same sentence to anyone who would listen. They were not an army, they were a harvest. Yet what the Mongols did when cities surrendered was somehow colder. Number 19, the come out and you'll live trick. The gates opened, the priests were singing, and that is exactly what the Mongols wanted. Mongol generals were the original con artists. When a besieged city finally surrendered, an officer would ride to the gates, remove his helmet, and sweetly promise food, water, and safe passage. Grandmothers walked out crying with gratitude. Fathers carried children on their shoulders. Then the gates slammed shut behind them. Archers rose on every horizon, and the Mongols did what they had planned from day one. They just wanted the killing field outside the walls, because the cleanup would be cleaner. Ibn al-Athir wrote that, at Merv in 1221, a choir of 200 monks marched out, chanting a hymn of thanksgiving, and died before the first verse ended. So how exactly did 50 Mongols slaughter 50,000 people without anyone running? Number 18. The quota killings. Your boss hands you a battle axe and says, 20 today. Welcome to Monday in the Mongol army. Every trooper got a personal kill quota, 10, 20, 50 heads depending on the city. They walked down kneeling rows of villagers, counting aloud in Mongolian, Arav, Korin, Guch, chop chop chop, stopping for sips of kumis from a leather flask. The villagers did not run. The fear had welded their feet to the earth. Historian J.J. Saunders wrote that a single Mongol could leisurely slaughter a whole queue of quaking villagers too afraid to resist. One captive in Bukhara reportedly held his executioner's sword while the soldier stepped away to piss, then handed it back when he returned and knelt down again. That is how deeply the Mongols had broken the human mind, yet every dead body still needed to be proven. And that is where it got truly sick. Number 17. The ear receipts. The Mongol army had HR, and payday was paid in ears. Every soldier had to submit daily proof of his kills or get flogged in front of the camp. A personal leather pouch, counted at sundown by a squad officer on a camp stool. Light pouch meant the whip. Heavy pouch meant extra loot and extra women. Officers ran stakeouts inside their own camps to catch ear thieves. In the Merv camp in 1221, 2 Mongol brothers stabbed each other to death over a sack of ears that neither of them had actually earned. Days later, fresh squads were sent back into the ruined city to hunt survivors hiding in cellars, wells, and grain silos. More bodies, more ears, more pouches. Yet straight butchery bored the Khans, so they started getting creative. Number 16. The 3 pyramids of Nishapur. 1 arrow, 1 Persian archer, one dead Mongol son-in-law, and 1.7 million people paid for it. April 1221, Nishapur. During the final assault, a single Persian archer on the southern wall fired one lucky shot and put an arrow straight through the throat of Togachar, Genghis Khan's favorite son-in-law. Togachar's widow was Genghis's own daughter, and she wanted every single soul inside those walls to die for it. Not beheaded, decapitated, sorted, stacked. When the city fell, every human inside died, plus every dog, cat, goat, and chicken. The skulls were then separated by category and built into 3 separate pyramids, one for men, one for women, one for children. Juvayni writes that Mongol riders spent days slowly circling the pyramids, admiring them like monuments to a dead god. The widow walked up to the child pyramid, placed her hand on a little girl's skull, and said 5 words. Now my husband can sleep. Number 15. The Bone Mountains of Zhongdu. Those are not hills, Effendi. Those are the people. The Muslim envoy from Khwarezm had been riding the road to Zhongdu for 3 days when he finally turned to his guide and asked what that white mountain range in the distance was called. The guide laughed, shook his head, and said those 8 words. Zhongdu was the old name for Beijing, and in 1215 the Mongols turned it into a scene out of hell. After months of siege, the city fell, and Genghis lit it on fire for a full month. Bones piled so high by Mongol cleanup crews that you could see them from 3 days' ride away. Soldiers were scraping the grease off cobblestones and collecting it in clay jars. 3 months later, everyone found out exactly why. Number 14. The human fat firebombs. Medieval napalm made out of people. Mongol siege engineers were not stupid. They had Chinese and Persian specialists on the payroll who figured out that human fat, mixed with tar, resin, and sulfur, burns like hellfire and sticks to skin like molten glue. So the Mongols started rendering the bodies of slaughtered citizens into jars of flammable paste. The paste got packed into clay pots, catapulted over enemy walls, and shattered on impact, spraying a burning slurry onto rooftops, faces, eyes, open mouths. Water made it worse because fat floats. Defenders were literally cooked alive inside the melted bodies of their own dead neighbors. At the siege of Kaifeng in 1232, a Chinese defender named Wang Shi screamed to his squad mate that he could smell his sister in the fire sticking to his armor. They found Wang's body later, still clutching a burning corpse he thought he was saving. Yet weaponized bodies got way darker in 1346. Number 13. The plague catapults of Kaffa. 1 catapult, 1 siege. 50 million dead Europeans. This is the ritual that killed half of Europe. The year is 1346. The Golden Horde under Jani Beg was besieging the Genoese city of Kaffa on the Crimean coast. Then the Black Death tore through the Mongol camp, dropping his men by the thousands every single day. Jani Beg could have ordered a retreat. Instead, according to notary Gabriele de Musi, he stood on a hill at sunset, pointed at the pile of his own plague-rotted soldiers, and gave one order that would end up killing half a continent. Load them. For days, plague-bloated corpses rained from the sky onto the streets of Kaffa, bursting on cobblestones, spraying infected fluids onto food carts and children's faces. Genoese sailors fled west in panic, and their ships carried the Black Death into Italy, France, England, and eventually Iceland. Yet the Mongols did not even need a plague to desecrate bodies. Number 12. The gut harvest of Termez. She swallowed the pearls to save her family. They sliced her open and found them anyway. Then the commander made a decision that would redefine how Mongol soldiers looted cities forever. At Termez in 1220, a local woman named Rabia begged for her life by telling the Mongol commander she had swallowed her family's pearls to hide them. The commander smiled, nodded, and ordered his men to slice her open right there in the courtyard dirt. They pulled real pearls out of her stomach, still slick. The commander then gave the order: cut every dead body open, all of them. For 3 straight days, soldiers worked the streets of Termez like fishermen gutting salmon, slicing bellies and rummaging through intestines with gloved hands. Grandmothers sliced, babies sliced, teenagers sliced. The Amu Darya River turned rust red for 2 weeks. One Mongol sergeant pulled a ruby the size of a pigeon egg out of a dead bride's throat. Number 11. The blood must never touch the ground. Noble blood spilled on dirt awakens angry ghosts. That one religious rule turned Mongol execution into an art form. The Mongols worshipped Tengri, the sky god, and one of Tengri's oldest commandments was that the blood of nobles is sacred. So when the Mongols captured a king, a prince, or a general, they had to kill him without bleeding him. That single taboo produced the most inventive tortures in military history: suffocation under carpets, crushing under banquet platforms, sewing every orifice shut with waxed leather thread, drowning inside felt sacks, bending the spine backward until the column snapped in 3 places, pouring molten silver into still open eyes. Each method kept every drop of blood inside the body. On paper, it sounds merciful. It is the exact opposite. These deaths took hours, and the victim stayed awake for most of it. Some nobles offered their entire treasury just to be beheaded instead. Every offer was refused. Number 10. The Caliph rolled in a carpet. The richest man in the Islamic world starved to death beside a mountain of his own gold. February 10th, 1258. Hulagu Khan sacked Baghdad, the intellectual capital of the Islamic world. For 7 straight days, the city burned. Libraries were thrown into the Tigris until the river ran black with ink, then red with blood, then black again. An estimated 800,000 people died. Then Hulagu captured Caliph al-Mustasim, the spiritual leader of every Sunni Muslim alive, and the single richest man he had ever seen. But Hulagu had to kill him without spilling noble blood. So he had the Caliph rolled tight inside a Persian rug, tied shut at both ends, and the Mongol cavalry rode back and forth over the carpet for close to an hour, while the Caliph screamed himself out of existence inside. Before the carpet, Hulagu locked the Caliph inside a vault filled with his own gold and told him to eat the coins if he was hungry. The Caliph never ate a single one. Number 9. The Platform Feast of Kalka River. Dinner was served on a table made of living Russian princes. May 31st, 1223. Battle of Kalka River. Mongol generals Jebe and Subutai annihilated a coalition of Russ's princes, including Prince Mstislav of Kiev. The princes were captured alive, but they were noble, so their blood was off limits. What the Mongol commanders did next feels more like a horror film than a real battle report. They laid the captured princes flat on the grass, placed heavy oak planks across their chests, built a long banquet table on top, and sat down to a full victory feast. Dancers performed. Roasted mutton was passed. Kumis poured into silver cups, looted from the same men being crushed below. For 5 straight hours, the princes slowly suffocated, while Mongols clinked cups above them. Witnesses said you could hear ribs breaking between courses. One Mongol general stamped his foot on the planks to make Prince Mstislav scream, laughed at the noise, and said 4 words. The pig is singing. Number 8. The Molten Silver Execution. Inalchuk stole from a Mongol caravan. Genghis Khan made sure he spent eternity wearing his loot inside his skull. Inalchuk was the dumbest man in Mongol history. As governor of Otra in Kazakhstan, in 1219, he killed a 450-man Mongol trade caravan just to steal their silver, thinking Genghis Khan was too far away to care. Genghis cared. He mobilized 200,000 men and besieged Otra for 5 months for this one guy. When the city finally fell, Inalchuk was dragged out of his personal bathhouse, alive and naked. Genghis personally chose the method: boil silver down to liquid, pour it in his eyes, pour it in his ears. Some accounts say straight down his throat too. The silver cooled and hardened inside his skull into a metal death mask while his body was still twitching. Witnesses said the corpse looked almost peaceful, with tiny rivers of silver dripping down the cheeks like metallic tears. Number 7. The rape ritual of the Oirat girls. 4,000 girls, 6 straight hours. Their own fathers chained in a circle with their eyelids pried open. The year was 1237. The Oirat tribe had failed to send their yearly tribute of young virgins to Ögedei Khan's harem. One missed shipment. That is all it took. Ögedei went volcanic. He ordered 4,000 Oirat girls rounded up, stripped naked, and marched to a public plain outside the capital. The girls' own fathers, uncles and brothers were chained in a circle around them and forced to watch, eyelids held open by soldiers so they could not blink. Ögedei's entire army then took turns on the girls for 6 straight hours. 2 girls died from the assault. The rest were handed out like party favors. Some went to Ögedei's harem. Some got sold to merchant caravans heading east toward China. Some got distributed to officers as camp wives. Historian Jack Weatherford called this the single worst atrocity on the Mongol record. Number 6. The "feed the horses" cry. 3 little words turned a sacked city into 7 days of hell. Feed the horses. After every city sack, a Mongol commander would rise in his saddle and shout those 3 simple words. That was the signal. Every rule off, every restriction gone. Soldiers now had unlimited permission to rape, loot, kill, and burn for as long as they wanted. Any woman, any house, any child, any priest, any elder. Grab what you want, do what you want, leave when you're done. Some cities endured "feed the horses" for a full week, with men breaking down in tears mid-rape from sheer exhaustion. Greek chroniclers wrote that survivors could not speak for years afterward. Their tongues still worked, but their minds had sealed shut. One Russian priest who survived Vladimir in 1238 never spoke again for 50 years, except to whisper the phrase, "feed the horses," every morning at sunrise until the day he died. Number 5. The screaming shield wall. Mothers watched their own teenage sons die on the spears of their own city's soldiers. That was the Mongol way of winning a fight before it started. Before major battles, Mongol commanders would round up thousands of civilians from recently conquered cities. Women, children, old men, blacksmiths who had never held a sword. They marched these civilians to the front of the Mongol line and forced them to walk, unarmed, directly at the enemy, screaming, weeping, praying in 5 languages at once. The Mongol cavalry rode behind them, using the crowd as a living curtain of flesh. Enemy archers who aimed at the Mongols hit their own countrymen instead. Defenders dropped their weapons, fell to their knees, and surrendered sobbing because the alternative was watching their entire family get butchered by their own soldiers. The Mongols had figured out something dark. A defender who hates himself surrenders faster than one who hates his enemy. Number 4. The erasure of Khwarezmia. Genghis Khan did not conquer the Khwarezmian Empire. He deleted it from the face of the earth. 1221. He sent 2 separate armies back through the ruined provinces with orders that are still shocking today. Burn every village, smash every canal, poison every well, kill every farm animal, kill every stray human. According to one Persian chronicle, Genghis personally diverted the Amu Darya River to flow through the birthplace of the Khwarezmian emperor, turning the man's childhood home into a muddy swamp, just to wipe the village off every future map. That is revenge on a cosmic scale. Khorasan, once a jewel of Islamic civilization with millions of people, was reduced to silent ghost ruins. Persian historian Mustawfi wrote in 1330 that Merv was still in ruins over 100 years later. Number 3. The whisper that killed a civilization. 4 whispered words from a dying man wiped out a people of 3 million. August 1227. Genghis Khan lay dying in his tent, propped up on sable furs, blood from a fall off his horse still crusted on his beard. Surrounded by his sons and top generals, he beckoned them closer and whispered one final order that froze the room. The Tanguts, kill them all. The Tangut people had refused to send troops for his last campaign. That was the entire crime. So after Genghis died, his generals carried out the whisper with ruthless efficiency. For months, Mongol death squads hunted Tangut families through caves, forests, and river valleys. Entire villages were burned with survivors nailed to the front doors as warnings. A civilization of 3 million people, with its own written script and Buddhist monasteries, was essentially erased in under a year. Number 2. The funeral that killed 20,000 strangers. 20,000 innocent people died because they saw a wagon go by. That was the price of Genghis Khan's funeral. His will demanded one thing above all else. His grave must stay secret forever. No tomb, no marker, no shrine, no way for enemies to ever find and desecrate his bones. So the funeral procession did something unthinkable. As they carried Genghis's sealed wagon north toward Mongolia, they killed every single living being they passed on the road. Farmers in rice paddies, travelers on trade routes. After the burial, 1,000 horses were stampeded over the grave for 6 hours to erase the mound. Then the burial soldiers were executed. Then the soldiers who executed them were executed, layer by layer, witness by witness, until nobody on earth knew where Genghis Khan actually slept. His grave has never been found. Number 1. The self-cannibalism of Zhongdu. Genghis Khan rode through the gate of Beijing in silk slippers, looked at the ruined city, and smiled. The city has eaten itself for me. The Mongols did something here in 1215, so disturbing that some accounts get quietly edited out of university textbooks. Genghis never actually attacked Zhongdu. He surrounded it and waited for 10 straight months. The walls were too strong to breach, so he decided to let the city eat itself alive. First the horses ran out, then the dogs, then the cats, then the rats, then the insects. According to Chinese chronicles, the people of Zhongdu began to eat their own dead. Mothers ate their children, soldiers ate fallen comrades, nobles ate their own servants. Mongol scouts outside the walls reportedly heard screaming that was not human anymore, howling that sounded like animals learning to laugh. When the starving survivors finally opened the gates in June 1215, the streets were carpeted with chewed bones and half-eaten corpses. Genghis did not need to massacre the survivors. The hunger had already done the job. Sometimes all the Mongols needed was time, patience, and a closed gate. 21 rituals, one empire, and a trail of terror so deep that 8 centuries later, the world still whispers about the things they left out of every official history book you ever read.